Hello, this is Garrett Keane. In this particular video we're going to look at a couple of problems on selection, basically using if, else and then structures within Visual Basic for applications. These structures are normally used when a decision has to be made within a program. If we look at the example here, if I go to the one that's written in here, I already have a form that's set up here, and you'll find this on your public directory. If you don't have access to the public directory, you can make up the form as you see it here. The first question here is calculate and output the largest of two numbers. So that's the one that I'm going to do in this program here. You'll see in this frame, I call the frame maximum, FORA maximum 2. The caption on this frame is maximum of two numbers. I have a text box here called text num1, and this one is called text num2. I have labels here. I haven't bothered to name them because they're not going to be manipulated in the code. This is number 1 and this is number 2. I have a button here, calculate command, or it could be btn, but cmd, calculate maximum 2, so I'm using the 3-letter prefix cmd, and I have the caption on it, calculate maximum, and I have a label down here called lbl result 2, in which I'm going to output the result. So the way this is going to work, the way I can code this up, is to click on calculate maximum. It opens up the subroutine, command calculate maximum to click. So when the user clicks on this button, the code that I'm about to put in here, will be executed. I need to declare two variables, so I'll declare num1 as a single and num2 as a single. Next thing I need to do, if I just put the input section, I read in num1 is equal to text num1 dot txt. So it's going to be read in from the first text box out on the screen. Also, if I go back up to the top, I should put option explicit. That forces me to name all the variables that I'm going to use in the program. The next thing I read in is the second number from the text box, text number 2, and I read that in like so. The next thing I can do then is I basically have my if decision, and I say if num1 is greater than num2, then I can say label, I can actually define another variable called max. Max is a single, and I can say if num1 is greater than num2, max is equal to num1, else max is equal to num2, and I close this off with an end if. So this is the basic structure of a binary if decision, an if block, a binary if block. You have an if condition followed by a test, and in this particular test the greater than sign is known as a relational operator. What this piece of code will do, it will test to see if the value stored in the variable num1 is greater than the value stored in num2. If this condition is true, the program will execute all the code between this if block and the next else. So it will assign the value num1 into the variable called max. Then it comes to the else and it skips down to the end if. If however this condition is false, if in fact num2 is greater than or equal to 1, it will skip to the else and it will print out max. It will assign num2 into the max. And the last thing we need to do then is output. So we're going to put our output in a text box called label, in a label called label result 2. Put on the full stop, and because it's a label, I set the caption, and the caption is the largest number is quotation mark there. I just say max like that. So if I run through this program, with the F8 button. I click F8 once, it comes up, so I put in two numbers, 23, and I come down and I put in 50. Or actually I make the first one bigger. 51 there and 50, and I say calculate maximum. So it starts up here at the top and I press the F8 button to proceed. It skips the declaration statements and it comes here to num1 is equal to text num1 text. So it reads in 51 in there. Then if I print down here in the immediate window, I can print num1, comma num2. So you can see it's read in 51 to into num1, but num2 is still 0. I come back up, execute this line, and I execute this statement again, and now you can see that num2 is read in. It has the value 50. Then it carries out this test. If num1 is greater than num2, when num1 is 51, num2 is 50, this condition will be true. So you see it comes into this block here, and it assigns the value num1 into max. So if I come down here, and I print max, you can now see that max has the value, the third value along here is 51. You can also see when it comes to the else, it skips down to the end if it ignores this block. And it comes down here and says label result to caption, the largest number is max. So let's go out and look at the spreadsheet. Or sorry, yeah, the spreadsheet, the largest number is 51. So it worked correctly there. This time I'll put a smaller number in here. So I'll have 20, number 1 is smaller than number 2, so we say calculate max. Press the F8 button to read in num1, num2. I'm just going to clear this lot here. I need the print statement there, and I'll read it in. So num1 is 25, num2 is 100, max is equal to 0. If num1 is greater than num2, you'll see this condition is now false, because num1 is 25, num2 is 100. So what I should do here is skip down to the else statement. It ignores the first block of statements here, and then it assigns num2 into the variable max, comes to the end of, and now it will set the caption. It will say the largest number is 100. So once again, you come out here and you say it's worked correctly. The largest number is 100. In this example, what we'll do is we'll set both of them equal. I say calculate maximum, F8, num1, num2. Sorry, I'll just delete this and print it off again. So you can see here, num1 is 100, num2 is 100, max is 0. If num1 is greater than num2, well, that condition is false because num1 is equal to num2. Therefore, it is a false statement. So it skips to the else, and it comes down and assigns the value 100 into max. So you can see that it still works correctly. Okay, thank you for listening. I will do the next question here in the next video.